everyone, I'm Tabitha, and today we're talking about books. Okay, don't go rush and check your calendar. It is not the last Tuesday of the month. However, I have already read 9 books, 8 that will appear on this video, and it's only 2 weeks into the month. So I'm going to do a book wrap up now for the first half of the month, and I'll do another one at the last half of the month. Despite the fact that this is only the first half of my month, you'll notice that it is still a lot of books. So remember that in the comments, I have the title of the book as well as a timestamp that will help you jump to that part of the video if there's a specific book you're looking for, or if you've already watched this all the way through once and you're just looking for another book again. A couple of disclaimers before we jump into the books. First, these reviews are my opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion. If you've read one of these books that I'm reviewing today, drop your comment, including your opinion, down below so that I can see what you thought of it. Just remember to be respectful of the author and of my opinion. Second, I read everything. Don't expect to see one single age category, genre, or even release year. Instead, if you're a more picky reader, pay attention to the who should read this book section of each review. That will tell you if this is the kind of book you're looking for. Third, and finally, if you think there's a book I'd like based on something you see here today, drop the name of the book and the author down in the comments. If you are an indie author or a publisher who wants me to read and review something you had a part in bringing to life, check the description where I've made sure to give you a link to a Google form you can fill out to give me the title of that book and get yourself moved up my TBR list. Without further ado, let's jump into the reviews. First book for the month of August is this one, Star Island by Hiaasen. This is a 2010 release by Alfred Knopf Books. It's 337 pages and it's an adult mystery. Your synopsis. I would call this a hilarious spin on life in the celebrity fast lane. It follows a young pop star named Cherry Pie and her undercover stunt double Andalusa as they get into hijinks that can only be written by Hiaasen. So what didn't I like about this one? The only thing that I can tell you I wasn't crazy about is the ending to this story. It's too quick for me. He does include a very adorable little Hollywood-style "Where Are They Now" ending, which I did enjoy. Overall, the ending didn't give me the closure that I was looking for. So what did I like? Well, first of all, Hiaasen's books are always absolutely hilarious. They take actual serious tone and real plot and wrap them into situations that are ridiculous, and the characters are ridiculous, and the things he puts in, they're just silly and they are fun, but they don't wreck the serious tone and plot of the book. And really, that's the genius that is Hiaasen's writing, and it's the reason why I keep reading so many books by him. The other thing that I like, or the second thing that I like, is that there are some great characters in here. As always with Hiaasen, I think there's some great characters in here that you like, despite the fact that they are morally questionable. So there are characters that you'll absolutely fall in love with. In this case, I really liked Anne, and of course, there are some other characters who make a comeback who you're going to appreciate. They make for a good story, even if they have ridiculous quirks. Third thing I love, Hiaasen continues to pop in characters that you've heard of before in some of his other stories. Skink makes a comeback in this one, but not in a way that would require you to read them all in any particular kind of order. So yes, he reuses some of those characters that you like, that you have strong feelings for, but not necessarily, even though this is on Goodreads marked as the 6th Skink book, I think, I've only read one other one to my knowledge. So you don't need to read them all in order. They otherwise have nothing to do with each other. The last thing that I'm going to say that I liked for this book is that the dig at real estate tycoons and schemes, which you've grown to expect from Hiaasen, right, still are here. But in this book, he also seems to be taking a swing at celebrity culture and paparazzi in a really cool way. So definitely this book could bring some really great conversations to liven up a book club. Because not only do you have unusual Hiaasen-style humor and situations, but you also can have great conversations about how you feel about real estate schemes, paparazzi, or celebrity culture. So great book club fodder. So who should read this? If you are intrigued by the idea of a solid plot that moves quickly, but is loaded with satire and ridiculous characters, you're going to love anything by Hiaasen. So specifically, I would say if you're looking for conversations about celebrity culture or what that's done to our society, pick up Star Island. If you're just interested in the satire Maybe not necessarily in the celebrity. You can pick up anything by Hiaasen and you will not be disappointed. In fact, I find that the more I read him, the more I love him. It is just, he's wonderful. So for that reason, this book was 4 stars for me. I really, really do enjoy his books and his tone, even though I continue to joke when I read him that I really think he sits down with dice and just rolls for strangeness. Like, oh, I rolled a 4. I have to include a parrot somewhere in here. Or oh, I rolled a 2. Somebody has to only have one eye. I really think he sometimes does that. But he's absolutely hilarious. I really enjoy him. And so I went 4 stars for Star Island by Carl Hiaasen. Book 2 for the month of August. So I listened to this one as an audiobook, but it was this one. Armageddon, the 5th book in the Daniel X series by James Patterson. It is a 2012 publication from Arrow Books, and it's a young adult science fiction novel at 352 pages. So your synopsis for this one. Daniel X, if you're unfamiliar with the series, is an alien hunter. And in this one, he's going to face number 2 on the list of alien outlaws. It's going to be a battle that invokes ancient prophecies of Armageddon and brings Daniel to a place that he never thought he'd have to go. So what didn't I like about this one? I should mention before I start that I am a huge fan of the Daniel X series in general. Dangerous Days of Daniel X, which is the first book, is one of my favorite ones for getting hesitant young readers reading books. It's wonderful for middle grade or even young adult students to get them reading books if they're not normally interested in books. It has a great premise and it's very interesting. This is the 5th book in the series. So my problems with this one started with the fact that it's loaded with cliche references. Barely anything in this book is anything brand new. It's all things that you've heard before, all the way down through this big battle in this big epic place that you thought that Daniel never imagined himself going is somewhere that we've all read about many times and doesn't have any new twists on the story. I had a general feeling like I've heard this story before, not only from the 4 previous Daniel X books, but also from other things. There just wasn't much new brought to the table this time in this book. The second thing that I wasn't crazy about is the twists and the surprise revelations in this one really didn't shock me. The villain's identity, I'm pretty sure, was supposed to be a giant twist, and even that I saw coming. It felt, again, too cliche and too like we've done this before, and it just didn't bring anything new. The last and final thing I can say about this is that overall, this just lacked the punch and the humor and the flair that I've grown to expect from the Daniel X books. So not even comparing it to other things in the genre, but comparing this book to the previous ones in the series, this one just lacked what I'm looking for in the Daniel X books. It was really disappointing. I don't like to say all negative things about a book, so there are some positive things that I can say about this one. The first is that I want to say the concept behind the series, the Daniel X series, is wonderful. The idea of having an alien on Earth here to fight other aliens is just amazing. And the fact that he's a teenager and he's on his own is even better. And I love in the previous ones where we learn the abilities that Daniel has and watch him play around with those. It's really great. And that premise is maintained in this book. Daniel is the same character in this book that he has been. So I do still love Daniel and what he's bringing to the table. The other thing that I can say I liked about this one, if I'm reaching for things to say that I liked, is that this audiobook is narrated by Milo Ventimiglia, and I love him. He brought a great voice to Daniel. He brought personality to Daniel, and that was nice. Who should read this one? If you like the idea of an alien being stationed on Earth and battling other aliens, you should really check out The Dangerous Days of Daniel X, which is the first book in the series by James Patterson. It's funny, it's witty, it's well written. Daniel's a great character. You're going to love him. You're going to laugh out loud. It's a great series. If you're completely enthralled with the first book, continue reading. If you love the characters at the end of book 4 and you feel like you just need more of the characters, no matter what happens to them, you just need more Daniel, more characters, then go ahead and get book 5 because it does deliver on those characters. My rating overall, this is probably the lowest rating I've ever given a James Patterson book, I think. I gave this one 2 stars. The series fell flat for me with this book, and it felt like this book was reaching to try to keep the series alive when maybe it didn't need to be a 5-book series. I do still love Daniel X. I do still love the series. Dangerous Days of Daniel X was an absolutely wonderful book. And the idea in general here is great. But for me, this book didn't deliver on what I was looking for Daniel X. Book 3 for August is Blood Awakens by Jessica Willis. This is the first book in a new series, and it is a 2019 release. Amazon. She's an indie author, so this is an Amazon book. It is a new adult fantasy, 601 pages long, and I was working off of the an ebook provided review copy from the author. This 601 pages does include a little glossary at the end of some Italian and Spanish phrases used during the book. Your synopsis. Blood Awakens is the first book in a new series that's taking place after the wars that followed the Awakening, which was a time when half the world's population discovered that they had supernatural powers. So now, 2 years later, 4 young people are learning to live in this post-apocalyptic world. But their safety is threatened when a bloodthirsty gang starts killing off the Awakened. So, what didn't I like about this one? There were a few typos that changed the meaning. You know I'm not a real stickler for typos. I'm not really picky about stuff like that. But a few of these typos actually changed the meaning of the sentence, kind of forcing me to reread. There were not a lot of them, but they are there. Another thing I wasn't crazy about is there are some dream sequences early in this book with one of the characters. I don't want to spoil anything by going into too much detail, but it's never really discussed or explained how those are possible for this character. And it almost had some insta-love language in these dream sequences that borders on creepy. That's a fine line in insta-love, right? You can instantly love a character and that's okay, or you can be a creepy stalker. And some of that language kind of walked that line. Yeah. I also want to say, the last thing I want to say that I wasn't crazy about is that I wanted more descriptions of some of these powers and what some of the Awakened are capable of. That being said, I do know that this is the first book in a series, so I have a feeling a lot more of that is coming as the series goes along. So what did I like? The characters in this book are really, really well written. I loved each one of them. I felt like they had depth. I wanted to find more about them, each of them. So I'm interested, and this is going to make me want to get a book too, which is really a wonderful thing. Young adult fantasy or new adult fantasy needs those strong characters to carry it through books. And I have a feeling this is going to be a series that does that. So I'm a fan of that. I like that. The next thing I like, the whole world around this Awakened is really an intriguing concept. The powers that are given to these characters are a good combination of things you've heard of before and things that are brand new and you haven't heard of before, or things that are being used in an interesting and unique way. That makes this series unique, even if the description of humans with powers doesn't really make it seem like it will be. The last thing I loved about this one is the world building. It's really well done. This is a good first book in a series. It's balancing questions answered with questions still lingering in order to make you want to read more. Highly recommended for people who are looking for tips on how to world build correctly. Speaking of that, who do I think should read this one? In general, fantasy fans who like world building and strong characters are going to love this one. It's a whole new group of characters in a whole new world to make you fall in love with them. Also, if you're a reader who likes stories involving supernatural abilities, powers, or in general, characters learning to deal with their supernatural abilities, you're going to love this one, because The Awakened presents a group of characters, the Awakened series presents a group of characters who are learning to deal with exactly that. My rating? Well, for me, this one was 4 stars. The characters are wonderful. I want more of them, and I will keep reading. So, well done, nice job, and recommended. This is my 3rd book for August. My 4th book for August was an audiobook that I listened to. It's called Not Exactly a Love Story by Audrey Couloumbis. This is a 2012 release from Random House Books for Young Readers. It is a young adult romance, and it clocks in at 276 pages. Your synopsis. Vinny's whole life seems to be an upheaval until he calls the girl next door in a late-night phone call, which leads to anonymous midnight conversations that aren't exactly a love story. So what didn't I like about this one? It has a very slow start. Vinny's voice at the beginning is shaky and unsure, and not what you'd want, not in the way that you'd want from a young adult for a teenager that feels realistic, but instead shaky and unsure to the point where it made him a little bit boring and kind of annoying. The second thing I'm not crazy about is the entire premise for this story involving around late-night phone calls had a lot of troubling components for me. I was able to ignore most of those troubling components and just enjoy the story for what it was. But if I think about it too hard, I get really annoyed by it. First of all, phone calls repeatedly at midnight to me signify stalker and creep and not necessarily someone I'd want to fall in love with. Secondly, as a parent, if my child is receiving phone calls or giving phone calls at midnight, I'm going to have an awful lot of questions. But again, I'm able to ignore it and enjoy the story for what I know they were going for if I don't think about it for too long. So what did I like? First, this has a cute underlying romance that does have an adorable ending. It gets you that feel-good you're looking for in a YA romance, that happily for now ending that we look for in YA romance. Second, Vinny's inner monologue towards the last half of the book comes into its own and actually seems more accurate for what a teenager would be thinking or worrying about. He's trying to figure out exactly who he is and how he projects his image to other people, and I liked those parts. So, although he was annoying in the first half, towards the back half of the book, I actually liked Vinny's monologue. He seemed to drop into a character I do find more relatable. The last thing I can say about this book is that it does hit its stride midway and making me glad that I didn't not finish it. I had a few moments in the beginning where I seriously considered not finishing this one. I'm glad I stuck with it. The ending was really adorable. So it paid off from that slow start. So who do I think should read this one? If you are a cheesy romance fan who likes young adult characters who are learning to find themselves, you're going to love this book. Also, if you're intrigued by a concept of a secret admirer back in the 1970s, so before internet, before cell phones, things like that, if you like that idea, that angle being played out, this one's cute and you might enjoy that. My rating? For me, I'm going to call this one 2.5 stars. So for Goodreads, we're going to round up to 3. It's cute. And it's quick, but ultimately, it's forgettable. All right, the next book I read for the month of August was Shadow of Doubt by S.L. Beaumont. It is a 2019 book published by Paperback Writers Publishing, which is an indie publisher. It is a mystery thriller, adult mystery thriller, and is 354 pages. I want to thank Hidden Gems for sending me an e-copy of this book in exchange for an honest review. This opinion is, of course, my opinion. Your synopsis. Jessica McDonald appears to have it all until she arrives on the scene of a terrorist bombing that turns out to be the first event to send her life on a collision course with disaster. So what didn't I like? I like to always start with what I didn't like so I can end on a positive note. First of all, I strongly dislike when a character involves themselves in some kind of extramarital affair. Even if it can be justified or explained away by the author, I never like that in a story. The fact that I was able to still love this book despite the fact that there's an extramarital affair just speaks volumes for how well written this book is. That's normally something that instantly makes me low rate a book. And for this one, that's not what happened. But I didn't particularly like that being used as a tool. Second thing I didn't like is that this book is split into 2 parts, really. The first part I found to be really predictable. It was a bit of a letdown. I was disappointed in the book at that part, but I didn't give up. That being said, many low-rated mysteries, so 1 or 2 star mysteries, in my opinion, would have tried to sell it as if part 1 was the exclusive story. And that had a very, I've heard this story before kind of vibe to it. And I didn't particularly like that first part. So what did I like or love? In this case, what did I love? Piggybacking on what I just said, the second part of this book took the adventure in a direction I didn't see it going. It took the book in a direction I think a lot of people wouldn't have gone with it. And so for that reason, I absolutely loved the way it wrapped up. I absolutely loved the second half of this book. It was wholly satisfying, and it's recommended. The second thing I liked, this mystery was solid. It kept my attention all the way through. I didn't have it all figured out, and that's exactly what you look for when you pick up a mystery book. Third thing I liked, that the ending was good. The ending was solid. It was satisfying. I was happy with it. When I finish a mystery book and I have a feeling of completion at the end, I love that. That's what I'm looking for. And the fourth and final thing is that the main character had some outstanding growth here. It was important growth. It was obvious growth, but it was growth. And I love that. I feel like adult main characters don't always grow and stretch as much as young adult or teenage main characters. So I really, really loved having an adult main character who stretched and grew outside of her comfort zone. That was wonderful, and I loved that. Who should read this book? I'm going to recommend this highly for mystery or thriller fans. If you have not yet read Shadow of Doubt, and you are a mystery thriller fan, you need to go find it. This book wraps so many layers into the mystery, it's going to leave you happily unraveling all of them for a while. My rating, I gave this one 5 stars. I'm a sucker for a well-written mystery, and this one seriously delivered. So for me, highly recommended for all mystery thriller fans. 5 stars for Shadow of Doubt. Hey, thanks for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed what you saw. If you are an author or a publisher, please make sure you fill out the submission form that's down under here to get your reviews on this channel. If you don't already subscribe, hit the subscribe button so you know when I'm back. Keep plotting the path to your dreams, and I will see you next time. Bye.